Okay, you didn't ask me. But okay, then hello everyone on our today's Core SIG and what we have on the agenda. Today we will present some information about the release 1.7, what was implemented, what are the features, and then Borja will show us the Kyma CLI and how we can provision GKE and Gardener cluster through that. And of course, we'll have a question and feedback section as usual. Then, okay, then first of all, do you have any questions before the details of the release or feedback? Okay, I don't hear anyone. Then, okay, let's start. Then, yep, we released on the last day of the October the Kyma 1.7 New Delphi. And what are the main features? First of all, our preview module Compass and Compass agent had a lot of improvements. And for example, we improved the agent in the way that we now register the applications with names, not with the IDs. Or we have the two pools of applications that are coming from the central place from the Compass and are coming from the runtime itself. That's the small bug was solved, and some other things. And of course, we provide the first version of the runtime provisioner API and first implementation. And in the next release, it will be more official and documented and so on. And that thing will allow to provision clusters on the providers and as well Kyma on it in the future. As well, we provided in 1.6 in Compass, we already had authentication and authorization, but without any mapping between authentication and tenant. Right now, it's implemented, and when the user or application through client certificate or client credentials is logged in or trying to request something, everything works in the context of the tenant right now. And last but not least, we have the scenarios view in the console that I will show as well. Then you can find more details about that in the next section. Then in the service management, we also in the previous release, we create a separate repository for the Helm broker. And in this release, we added the whole release pipeline into that component, and we released the first version of the Helm broker. Then you can also look into that project and see how the release looks like. About the security, there is the support for the TLS certificates hot reload that I guess you can also find more details in the section here. And the CLI that, yeah, Borja today will present in action how it works. And that will be the thing. And about the scenarios, more or less in the Compass, there is a view that we can already visualize how many applications to how many runtimes are assigned. And all of those runtimes see the APIs from those applications and so on. Because before we had just a simple list of the scenario names. And we have, of course, the section with known issues in the console and backup. Then if you have you found that issue, please see the documentation for that. And that's it about that release. I wish you a good time with that release. And I guess we can just go with the next section. Then Borja, the stage is yours.
Okay, thanks, Piotr. Then, in that case, I will start by sharing my screen as well. And what I'm going to show you is how to create Kubernetes clusters using the Kyma CLI. So I'm going to start by showing it on GCP, on Google Cloud. And then I will, on the second part, show it for Gardener. They are very similar. So let me just start with the GCP one, so then we have enough time for the cluster to get created and be able to see everything. So in the new Kyma CLI, which is the last release, 1.7. So this is not something in development. This is released, and everyone can use it.
Borja, excuse me, could you a bit bigger? Could you increase the?
Yes, of course.
Thanks.
Let me try to make this bigger. How do you zoom this in? Nope, sorry. Now I hope it's better.
Okay, that's great. Thanks.
Yeah, let me see. Yeah, this is big. Okay, so basically we have the Kyma provision command. And this command before had only the option to provision to Minikube. Now it also includes Gardener and GCP. So if I go to the GCP one and I show the help, I can see I have different flags to configure the cluster I want to create on Google Cloud. There are 3 required flags. One is the credentials to access Google Cloud. The other one is the name of the cluster. And the third one is the project in which you want to create the cluster, the GCP project. If you run provision GCP without arguments or some of the required flags are missing, you will see quickly, okay, I need to set these flags. So let me just do the actual provisioning, which means I need, first of all, a name of the cluster, which let's say CLI cluster. Then I need the project, which is the project I have here in my Google Cloud. You can see it on the URL. Let's copy it so we don't make mistakes. SAP Kyma Husky Dev. This is our development project. And finally, I need my credentials, which is a JSON key that I have in my, if I'm not mistaken, it's here, development, clusters, GCP. And here I have my JSON key. This contains the service account that allows me to create clusters. In the documentation, we have specified how you can create such a service account and which permissions do you need. So with these 3 properties, I should be able to create a cluster with the reasonable defaults for the rest of the configurations, such as the Kubernetes version and so on. So let's do this. We see it starting, and it will stay watching like this until it finishes. If you cancel the process, the cluster is still being created, so you could eventually cancel and just look for it on the web. So if I come here to the project, I should see a new cluster being created. Let's see. And it's going a bit slow today. Here it is. So we have the CLI cluster with the default region, default node count, etc. So this needs a couple of minutes to be finished. We will come back here when it's done because I want to show what happens when it finishes. So now let's go to Gardener, which is the next option. I have another provision command, which is called provision Gardener. It's almost the same. It has a bit more of configuration because Gardener allows for more configuration, but the required minimum configuration is the same. Name of the cluster, then we have the where is it now? Here the credentials, then we have the project name, which is here, and we have one more required configuration, which is the secret. The secret is the service account registered on Gardener to access the underlying cloud platform, which could be Google Cloud or any other provider. So let's look at how we get this information on Gardener. First of all, logging into the Gardener, and then let's see. Okay, so I have no clusters right now. My project is here, Borja. I'm going to use this project. Then for credentials, I need a service account. This can be created right here. And the configuration, the kube config for the service account can be downloaded also here. This service account is an administrator that will, in my name, do the operations of creating the Gardener cluster. And lastly, when you decide in which platform you want to deploy on Gardener, these are the supported ones, then you can set up a service key, the same one as the one in GCP. I'm going to use this one. And so let me show you how the command would look like. I have it here somewhere because this one is a bit lengthy, so I have it here. Basically, name of the cluster, same as the other one. Borja project, as I showed you in the UI. The secret is the GCP service account that I registered previously in Gardener. And lastly, the credentials is just the configuration file for the service account. So when I run this, same as before, cluster is starting to get provisioned. And if I go back to my clusters, I should see, here it is, the cluster default version, etc. It gets created. And now let's go back to the GCP one. Let's see if it finished. Aha, yes, it finished. As you can see, after provisioning the cluster, it saves the state locally, so you can modify the infrastructure. It imported automatically the kube config, and then the kubectl gets automatically configured, pointing to the new cluster. So if I now do kubectl cluster info, I should see the information of this GCP cluster. You can see it's not my local cluster as it was before, it's the actual GCP cluster. So basically, just with running one command, you are ready to install Kyma. So now I could just say Kyma install and write it properly, maybe. And that's it. Kyma is being installed into the GCP cluster. And with that, I finish my demonstration because the Gardener one, unfortunately, needs a bit more time. So with that said, any questions, comments, suggestions are welcome.
Yeah, that's a pretty great feature. And maybe I have the question about that next step when you provisioning Kyma on it, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's about the domains and those things? It's will work out of the box right now, or we need to improve something in that?
Yeah, that's a very good question.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, the library in which the CLI uses to provision the clusters, which is Hydroform, has let's say a small API of actions, so you can do tasks before creating the cluster or after. And in those tasks, you would be able to set up some special domain or DNS or a static IP, things like that. But we also have the plan to support, so Hydroform is based on Terraform, and we want to support Terraform modules. So basically, you would be able to describe any kind of infrastructure or configuration same way as Terraform does it. And with that, you could have a module which sets up a domain and the DNS and then a static IP for you, and you would be able to deploy it just like that.
Okay, that's
But it's not
great.
there yet. It's not there
Mm-hmm.
yet.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And what about the input parameters? Because you show that there is a lot of parameters can be specified for example, for the Gardener using the flags. Are you also supporting some YAML files?
No, that's not supporting YAML files right now. It supports direct flags, which are the ones we have now as more important configurations that are supported in the Terraform model. And we also support key value pairs. So you could put a list of variables, let's say, key and values. And with that, you could put arbitrary configuration into the CLI. But right now, there's not much more to configure other than the flags that are already provided.
I'm just saying that just to specify, instead of specifying a lot of flags, just to provide some YAML files that's saying, okay, here's my configuration about all those cheaters and so on and so forth, right? So
Exactly. You would be able to do that with the Terraform modules. So you would be able to have your own module with some extra configuration or some already set values that you don't need to pass flags to. And then you would be able to just say, use this module. And
you also want to support that on CLI. So basically, I can have some default config in my path, and that's saying, okay, Kyma, from the CLI, Kyma install GCP, and it will be simple as that, nothing more.
You still would need to say which module you want to use, because per default, we're going to ship it with our standard modules with different profiles.
Okay.
So that the people that don't have a Terraform module can just use that. And if you have your own module, which is an advanced thing, then you could just say, okay, provision a cluster based on this module. So you would pass the file, so to say. Or you could even pass a URL, because I think Terraform modules can be also passed by URL. So, but as I said, this is yet in development, and the final, how it will finally look like, I don't really know yet completely.
Okay.
Were there going to be any support for other local development options besides Minikube? I know that some experimentation had been done with an alternative, but I can't remember the name of it.
Yeah, so we want at some point in the future to add support for Kind, which is the Kubernetes local small Minikube they have now. We have it on the, let's say, on the roadmap, or at least we want to do that. When, I don't know.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
But we already had some POCs about installing Kyma on Kind, right? That was a success, right?
Yes.
Okay, then it's from the Kyma perspective, it's possible to be installed on the Kind.
Definitely, yeah.
It's here we just talk about the CLI support, right?
Exactly. It would be the provisioning of those clusters that we're talking about, and that we have not tried yet.
But basically, we already have a CLI pipeline showing that the Kyma can be installed on Kind Kubernetes in Docker, basically.
Correct. Yep. So.
Okay, then thank you very much, Borja, for your presentation. That was really a lot of things, but in a nice short time. That was nice.
Yeah,
okay,
thanks
guys.
for the invitation.
Guys, do you have any questions or feedback regarding any topic related to Kyma or even not to Kyma? Okay, then thanks a lot, and see you in 2 weeks, right?
I'm not, to be honest, probably in next 2 weeks we'll be on the conference, right?
Yes, so, but let's see. Maybe the SIG core will be done. Let's see. Okay, but yeah, maybe 4 weeks. Let's see. But see you next time, guys.
Exactly.
Bye bye.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Bye.